The events in this story take place during the summer months of 2019. A little backstory about myself and my family. We believe in witchcraft and also practice it. No, we are not those creepy dark witches that everyone talks about, and we are not into the dark stuff. Paranormal events happen on our house pretty frequently, so we have gotten used to the weird stuff happening. Our house has a timed backyard sprinkler system that usually goes off at 4 a.m. several days of the week. On this particular morning, the sprinklers had gone off at 4 a.m. like always, and had left some condensation on the patio table that is in the middle of the yard. You can see this image on the screen now. I had decided to go outside to work in the yard around 10 a.m. By now, all the condensation should have already evaporated and been gone from the outside table. When I began working in the yard, I noticed what appeared to be a very large handprint on the patio table. It appeared that the handprint was made out of condensation. Now, what was strange about this handprint was the shape of it. Not only was it very large, but it was also not quite the shape of a human. It couldn't have possibly been my husband's because he was not at home, and his hand, although very large, still didn't compare to the hand I saw on the tabletop. At this point, I decided I was just seeing things and went on with my day. I really hadn't thought about it much until it happened again the next morning. At this point, I knew something wasn't right. When I told my husband about what I had seen, his face turned ghostly white. He knew exactly what it was, but hadn't wanted to mention it to me. When he was younger, he had gotten into some dark stuff and had had to do a banishment of a dark entity. Unfortunately, he had recently been feeling the presence of the entity again, and had not wanted to tell me what he has been feeling. We knew something had to be done. Due to the severity of the evil entity, it required my husband to perform a blood ritual in order to get rid of it. Part of the ritual required him to paint his blood along all of the walls of the backyard where the original handprint had been found. As a side note, as normal protection from bad and evil things around our house, we have railroad ties in all of the four corners of the front yard and the backyard. Once my husband had finished the ritual of painting the walls with his blood, he removed one of the railroad spikes from the back corner in the backyard. As he pulled up the spike out of the ground, we could feel the thick darkness and evil leaving the house. The hairs on the back of my neck and arms stood completely on end as I felt the evil leaving. It snaked its way down our stairs, through the living room, and left the yard where the spike had been pulled up. The second we couldn't feel it anymore, my husband replaced the railroad spike immediately. The most eerie part of the situation was as the entity moved through the neighborhood, strange howls and barking began to occur from all the neighborhood dogs. We knew where the entity was by where the sounds were coming from. The hair on the back of my neck stood up again listening to those sounds and realizing what kind of evil we had been dealing with. The names in this story have been changed due to privacy issues. Both of my sons share a bedroom wall on the upstairs level of our house. One of them is 13 and the other is 2, so I usually have to ask the 13-year-old to keep it down while the baby is taking his nap. Since we were all stuck at home due to the pandemic, I had sent my 13-year-old son to his room to work on his schoolwork while I went and laid down with the baby in his room so that he could take his afternoon nap. When I was finally able to get him to sleep, I left the room to go downstairs and take care of some household chores while he slept. When I came back into the room to check on him, I heard a very loud knocking behind me, which in turn woke up the baby. Completely irritated with my teenager at this point, now that the baby was awake, I texted him in the other room and asked if he had been knocking around. The conversation went a little bit like this. "Shh, don't knock." "I didn't. Mom, I didn't." "Seriously?" "Yes." "What the heck?" "Did you hear it?" "Check the door." "Yes." "It didn't come from the door. It sounded like the wall behind me. I thought it was you. Knocked in a pattern twice." "I'll check." "Thanks." "Nothing. There's just nothing." "And you heard it too?" "Yes." "The baby did." "Tom?" Tom is our resident spook, so it's not unusual to hear Tom walking up and down our hallways from time to time. This knocking was different, though. My teenage son looked everywhere, but couldn't find anything or anyone around the house. As he is looking and finding nothing, I hear the knock again, but this time it was clear as day and right by my ear. Absolutely nothing was there. These events take place in the same bedroom as the story before this one. The events are also taking place with a 2-year-old toddler. After the knocking incident, the baby has not wanted to sleep in his room alone. There have been several times where I have overheard him talking with someone or something in the room. Of course, when I check on him, there's absolutely no one there. All I could see is him staring into the corner above his rocking chair. Naturally, I'm thinking that this is not normal and maybe he is just babbling to himself. One night, it was my husband's turn to lay down with the baby and put him to sleep for the night. This night, the baby was extremely restless and bothered. My husband was having the hardest time getting him settled down. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the baby looks up and says, "Oh no, they dead." After trying to get over the absolute shock and disbelief of what my husband had just heard, the baby wanted to have nothing to do with sleeping alone that night. Since that night, he has not slept alone in his room for months and absolutely refuses to. The baby just knows that someone or something is there. What could possibly be wanting to talk with my baby? Hey guys, before I end this video, I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and thank you for listening. Narrating scary stories is definitely not a new concept by any means, but I decided to try my hand in it and put my own spin on things. In addition to the stories I'll be researching and telling, I would love to hear from all of you. If you'd like to have your stories read on my channel, please send them to my email that I have linked in the description box below. Please make sure that they are true life scary stories and that you list the type of story in the subject line of the email. If you want to find me on other social media platforms, I am on Twitter at mfrightmare and Instagram at madamfrightmare, which I've also linked in the description box below. If you like this type of video, please like and subscribe. And again, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.